This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has affirmed that Algeria is determined to join the ranks of emerging countries with the goal of achieving gross domestic product of $400 billion by the end of 2027. The President also called on Algerian operators to give strong impetus to the economic sector by reviewing the reforms undertaken by the state to improve the business climate and simplify the investment process. Diplomacy Chief Ahmed Attar has called for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, for further strengthening of the Algerian-Ethiopian strategic partnership to maintain the current dynamic of their cooperation. The Israeli army has pursued its attacks on the Gaza Strip, killing at least 5 other Palestinians and wounding several others in Khan Yunis in the southern part of the territory. You're listening to Radio Algeria International. I'm Mariam Berchi. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has affirmed that Algeria is determined to join the ranks of emerging countries with the goal of achieving a gross domestic product of $400 billion by the end of 2027. This came in a speech delivered at the opening of the second edition of the national meeting with economic operators held at the International Conference Center here in Algiers.
أنتم تعلمون التزامنا أن في سنة آخر 27 أقصاها آخر 27 ندخل في تعداد الدول الناشئة بإيمرجون 2027 إن شاء الله. كنت نلتزم بدخل قومي خام يساوي أو يفوق 400 مليار دولار إن شاء الله، وهذا هو الهدف الذي لازم نتجند حوله كلنا كما رانا في هذه القاعة هذه إن شاء الله، حتى الناس لا خارج القاعة.
The President of the Republic affirmed that today Algeria must count on young people and their startups because their hands are clean and they are achieving accomplishments that inspire pride.
نخلق مناخ آخر بالصناعة ونخلق جيل جديد من رجال الأعمال اللي ينسينا في الماضي الأليم واللي يخلي الجزائر إن شاء الله تخطو خطوات أخرى. وهذا كان من التزام تجديد الجزائر، تجديد هياكل الجزائر ومؤسسات الدولة الجزائرية، أولا بالتركيز والركيزة على الشباب، لأن الشباب نظيف ونزيه ومخه ماهوش ملوث، لا بلا سيرفاكتوراسيون ولا بلا سوفاكتوراسيون ولا بالرشاوى ولا بهذه.
Referring to the investment momentum the country has experienced in recent years, President Tebboune announced that the Algerian Investment Promotion Agency, AAPI, had to date registered 13,700 investment projects covering various economic fields and sectors worth up to $6 trillion.
لا يفوتني في هذا المقام أن أنوه بالخطوات الهامة التي حققها قطاع الاستثمار منذ تفعيل المنظومة الجديدة لمرافقة وتشجيع الاستثمار من خلال الوكالة الجزائرية لترقية الاستثمار لابي، التي سجلت في ظرف قياسي منذ إنشائها في نوفمبر 2022 ما يفوق 13,712 إلى هذا الشهر هذا 13,712 مشروعا استثماريا بقيمة إجمالية تفوق أو تقارب 6,000 مليار دينار، وينتظر أن يخلق من ما يقارب 350,000 منصب شغل.
After commending their efforts, the President of the Republic called on Algerian operators to give strong impetus to the economic sector by reviewing the reforms undertaken by the state to improve the business climate, simplify the investment process, and make land available, particularly within the framework of the new investment law. He emphasized the imperative of unleashing investment initiatives, particularly in the industrial sector, where Algeria has experienced a qualitative leap forward, stating that for development to occur, the share of industry in GDP must be increased to 13 or 14%. He insisted that the Algerian Investment Promotion Agency must be freed from past contradictions, as tens of thousands of projects have been registered within the favorable ground to implement them. Referring to the stride made by Algeria in the agricultural sector with the strengthening of its food security, particularly in strategic crops, the President of the Republic emphasized the importance of regulating the prices of products such as potatoes. President Tebboune said as president, he is not supposed to talk about the price of potatoes, emphasizing the need to regulate the prices of this product. He further recalled that Algeria has achieved 81% self-sufficiency in durum wheat, adding that Algeria was also able to save $1.2 billion during the current year thanks to the reduction in imports of these vital goods. He added that by the end of the current year, Algeria will achieve 100% sufficiency in durum wheat, meaning it will save at least $2.5 billion of imported wheat. He said the current decisions made are structural and the steps taken by Algeria are recognized by economic experts as good decisions, adding that reforms are still underway and that export operations would no longer be carried out through the National Agency for the Promotion of Foreign Trade, ALJEX.
ربحنا ما يقارب $1.2 مليار ما استوردناش. وصل إن شاء الله في نهاية هذه السنة الاكتفاء التام 100% من قمح الصلب، معناه نكون ربحت بالأقل 2.5 ملاير نتاع قمح ما نستوردوش. وهذه ما بين الأمور الهيكلية ما يجدر فيها، أمور هيكلية رانا نهيكلوا إعادة هيكلة الاقتصاد الوطني. خطينا خطوات ربما في بعض الأحيان ما يعرفوهاش العامة، أما اللي خاص اللي عنده اختصاص في الاقتصاد يعرف. باقي لازم نزيد نصلح كيما هذه ألجكس من اليوم ما بقاتش ألجكس.
President Abdelmajid Tebboune announced that the government is required to create 2 new bodies by the end of May, one responsible for regulating and supervising imports to ensure that Algeria doesn't run out of any goods. He added that the other one is responsible for encouraging exports by helping exporters.
هما مطالبة ابتداء من هذا الاجتماع باش نخلق هيئتين عصريتين تتماشيان مع الاقتصاد الحالي. هيئة الاستيراد وتكون عندها كما قلت un système de veille à tous les niveaux على المواد باش ما ننقصش المواد في الجزائر، حتى مادة ما لازم تنقص، ونحاول الاستيراد يكون على حساب الحاجيات تاع البلاد وعلى حساب الانتاج الوطني. معناه باللي عندك ارقام حقيقيه نتاع الانتاج الوطني. نخلقوا هذه المؤسسات الجديده، مؤسسه للاستيراد ومؤسسه للتصدير تساعد المصدرين، ننظمهم. هادو مؤسستين نعطوا نفوسنا مدة نتاع حتى نهاية ماي إن شاء الله المؤسستين يكونوا جاهزين إن شاء الله.
The President hailed the work of the Economic Renewal Council Korea and encouraged it to keep working on the same path, adding that in less than 2 years and a half Algeria will be the second or even the first economy in Africa.
اليوم فخور وأقولها صراحة، فخور بالمنظمة الجديدة نتاعكم، المجلس التجديد الاقتصادي الكريا. سي فوتر ريبيوتاسيون كي طونجو اي فيما يخصني انا جو سوي فيير دو كولابوري معاكم اترافير لو كريا. انتم الامل تاع خروج الجزائر من الوضع اللي كانت فيه، رانا في مرحله مؤقته باقي لنا 2 أو 2.5 باش نوصل الى درجه ثاني اقتصاد ولا اول اقتصاد افريقي ان شاء الله.
He went on saying that before the blessed Iraq, Algeria's imports reached $60 billion, but now the country has structurally and definitively reduced the imports bill to $40 billion, and it works on reducing it further. As for tourism, the President of the Republic said one of the most difficult decisions taken by the new government was to grant tourists a visa upon arrival at the airport, while in the past granting the Algerian visa to tourists was very complicated.
السياحة ما فيش قرار أصعب قرار باش هذه تدخل في القرارات اللي خدتها الدولة الجديدة، الجزائر الجديدة، اللي باش نشجع كان الفيزا نعطوه وكنت قلت بالبزاق كما يقولوا. اليوم الفيزا راه في المطار، تجي الطيارة ينزل من الطيارة يفوت الكيشي تم يعطوه الفيزا تاعه سور بلاص ويروح الله يسهل عليه. ما فيش تضحية أكثر من هذه.
Regarding the Algerian-European partnership, the President of the Republic stated that the European countries, which are Algeria's partners, have accepted the revision of the association agreement, as Algeria will not ask for something impossible from its European partners. The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Hattaf, has held bilateral talks in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the Chairman of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, on the eve of his participation to the 24th Extraordinary Session of the AU Executive Council. On the occasion, Mr. Attaf reiterated his congratulations to Mr. Ali Youssef following his re-election or his election as chairperson of the EU Commission, assuring him of Algeria's full availability to provide him with all forms of support in the accomplishment of his noble mission at the service of issues of peace, development and integration in Africa. During the meeting, the officials exchanged views on the main issues and current affairs at continental level and to examine ways of strengthening cooperation and coordination between Algeria and the EU Commission to unify efforts and face up to the various challenges the African continent is confronted to. The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has called from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, for further strengthening of the Algerian-Ethiopian strategic partnership to maintain the current dynamic for their cooperation. In his closing speech at the 5th session of the Algerian-Ethiopian Joint Commission, Mr. Attaf said he was extremely satisfied with the concrete and encouraging results achieved, hailing the success of the meeting. Mr. Attaf said that the in-depth talks he had held with his Ethiopian counterpart, Gideon Timotheus, were very fruitful, highlighting the two countries' commitment to their shared authentic identities as two solid pillars of the African Union at continental level and as two fervent defenders of a rules-based world order at the international level. The Minister of State also called for the Algerian-Ethiopian strategic partnership to be further strengthened, believing that real success will only come with the implementation of what has been agreed by transforming the agreements into concrete cooperation activities.
Let me reaffirm our strong commitment to the declaration that our two countries have concluded in June 2013 with the aim of elevating their bilateral relations to the level of strategic partnership. I sincerely believe that it was the right and fair thing to do because the Algerian-Ethiopian relations are really of strategic nature, strategic in their dimensions, strategic in their scope, and strategic in their aims. Let me also express our deep satisfaction with the new dynamic that has been instilled in our bilateral relations during the most recent years. A dynamic that has been evidenced by the high-level visits that Algeria gladly received in 2022, from both the Prime Minister and the President of Ethiopia, by the productive and purposeful meetings that our leaders, President Abdelmajid Tebboune and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, have had on many occasions, as well as by the Algerian ministerial visits undertaken recently to Ethiopia.
On the same occasion, the Algerian Foreign Minister further highlighted Algeria's dedication to advancing its relationship with Ethiopia to allow for a strategic partnership. He emphasized the goal of achieving strong political coordination and ensuring the partnership delivers a positive and lasting impact for both nations.
Our duty today is therefore to build on this new dynamic, to ensure that our strategic partnership delivers concrete results with positive and lasting impact. In other words, we are much more awaited when it comes to urgent need to uplift our economic cooperation to the same excellent level of our political coordination. In taking on this challenge, I encourage each and everyone present in this room to embrace the ambitious vision of our leaders and to bear in mind that all the needed and necessary ingredients are in place to achieve resounding success.
The joint communique adopted by the two parties highlighted the convergence of views and position on various issues of common interest at regional, continental and international level as part of their unwavering commitment to the principle of the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the objectives of the United Nations Charter. The Algerian and Ethiopian parties agreed to strengthen the bilateral legal framework by signing 13 legal texts at the 5th session of the Joint Commission. These texts mainly concern economic sectors, notably the pharmaceutical industry, investment promotion, agriculture, energy, mining and startups. Particular attention was also paid to human resources with the signing of memorandums of understanding and executive programs in the fields of higher education, sport and culture, in line with the conviction of both parties that strengthening friendship and exchanges between the Algerian and Ethiopian peoples remains an essential pillar for promoting a strategic partnership between the two countries. The Secretary of State for African Affairs, Mrs. Bakhta Salma Mansouriya, was received in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, by the Ethiopian Secretary of State for Political and Economic Affairs, Mr. Habera Habera. During the meeting, the two sides examined the bilateral relations and reaffirmed their shared will to strengthen and promote them in various fields, notably the economic, scientific and technical cooperation. The meeting is part of the 5th session of the Algerian-Ethiopian Joint Commission, which began yesterday. The Speaker of the Algeria-Mauritania Parliamentary Friendship Group, Anar Abaisidi, has received here in Algiers his counterpart, the Speaker of the Mauritania-Algeria Parliamentary Friendship Group, Dah Shuhaib. The meeting was an opportunity to strengthen the bonds of the two countries and their historic relations of cooperation between the two countries to promoting them and to the highest level. Mr. Anarabi held the solid relations existing between Algeria and Mauritania and the strong political will for the leaders of the two countries to strengthen their relations. He also called for a closer coordination between the two legislative institutions and for intensified efforts to support the process of parliamentary cooperation while focusing on exploiting the investment opportunities offered by the Algerian market in various fields. Mr. Shuaib conveyed the greetings of the President of the Mauritanian National Assembly, Mohamed Ould Bamba Ould Meguet, to the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boghali, reaffirming strong bilateral relations. On the occasions, Mr. Shuaib expressed his satisfaction at the Algerian-Mauritanian relations, stressing the importance of strengthening them through permanent and continued coordination. The two parties expressed their mutual commitment to continue working to strengthen bilateral parliamentary cooperation to meet the aspirations of the two peoples and sister countries. The Israeli army has pursued its attacks on the Gaza Strip, killing at least over 5 Palestinians and wounding several others in Khan Yunis in the southern part of the territory. The news agency Wafa stressed that 39 people and more than 100 others were wounded in the past 24 hours in the Israeli continued bombardments. In this respect, the Médecins Sans Frontières organization stated that the Israeli army was carrying out an ethnic cleansing, targeting all aspects of life in Gaza. The head of the organization's regional media office, Ines Abu al-Khalif, stressed that the Israeli forces continued to target Gaza's hospitals with an increasing violence. She reiterated that nothing could justify the blatant targeting of hospitals, which must be protected under international law. The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas has spoken up in favor of any peace proposal in Gaza that guarantees a permanent ceasefire and complete withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from the Gaza Strip. In a statement, the Hamas representative in Algeria, Youssef Hamdan, said that the movement welcomes any proposal which ensures a ceasefire, full withdrawal of occupation forces from Gaza, an end to Palestinian suffering, and a serious prisoner exchange, reiterating their openness to all efforts that help advance these goals.
We affirm that we are dealing positively and responsibly with all proposals, and any proposal that includes a ceasefire, the complete withdrawal of the occupation forces from the Gaza Strip, an end to the suffering of our Palestinian people, and reaching a serious prisoner exchange deal will be considered. Naturally, we are open to any point that could be added to the agenda that strengthens the path towards this goal, whether related to internal Palestinian matters or as a top priority now, stopping the aggression against our Palestinian people and ending this massacre being committed in full view and hearing of the world, and moving toward the second phase of the agreement signed in mid-January.
The Hamas delegation is expected to meet in Cairo with Qatari and Egyptian mediators as part of efforts aimed at reaching a ceasefire in Gaza. Over 1,560 Palestinians have been killed and 4,004 others wounded in Gaza since the Israeli army resumed its attacks on the Gaza Strip last month. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has called on the Israeli occupying forces to stop their attacks on hospitals and health services in the Gaza Strip, reaffirming that patients and medical staff must be protected. In a message posted on social media, the WHO chief lamented that Al Ahli hospital in Gaza is out of service after it was targeted by an Israeli attack. Moving to Sudan, at least 56 people have been killed in attacks carried out over the past 2 days by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces in the city of Qadada in North Darfur State in the western part of Sudan. Amina Borisha reports.
The Coordination of Resistance Committee in Al-Fasher has said that these people who have been identified as civilians were executed on an ethnic basis after the RSF took control over the city. In a statement, the local volunteer group accused the militia of committing widespread violations and displacing residents forcibly and cutting all communication networks. The Sudanese Emergency Lawyers Initiative, for its part, confirmed that the paramilitary forces has killed 52 civilians and set houses and properties ablaze 2 days after entering Qadada. Let's note that since mid-April, Sudan has plunged into a devastating conflict between the Sudanese army and paramilitary forces, which has caused the lives of more than 29,600 people.
That's it for today's news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to our economic program by my colleague Said Bourazi. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the CEO of the Sonelgaz Energy Group, Morad Ajed, has received in Algiers an Iraqi delegation from the energy sector led by Mansour Marid Atiyah, member of the Iraqi Parliament's Energy Committee. The delegation asked the state-owned group to support Iraq in the electricity and gas sector, according to a Sonelgaz press release. During the meeting, the two parties discussed ways of strengthening cooperation and partnership between the two countries in the energy sector. The CEO of the Sonatrach Energy Group, Rashid Hashishi, has held a working session in Ravenna, Italy, with the managing director of Occidental Algeria, Warren Murdoch, during which the two sides discussed ways of expanding the partnership in the hydrocarbon sector. The working session was held on the sidelines of Rashid Hashishi's participation in the proceedings of the WTO Med Energy 2025 conference held in the Italian city of Ravenna from 8 to 10th April. The talks focused on ways of strengthening bilateral cooperation and expanding the strategic partnership in the hydrocarbon sector. The Minister of Pharmaceutical Industry, Wassim Ouidri, has received the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Denmark to Algiers, Catherine from Hoyer, with whom he discussed bilateral relations between the two countries and ways of strengthening cooperation in various fields, notably in the pharmaceutical industry, according to a military press release. During the meeting, the two parties discussed the current state of the Danish investments in Algeria's pharmaceutical sector. They also discussed the opportunities offered for the development of these investments in line with the Algerian government's strategy of strengthening health safety and achieving self-sufficiency in medicines. The Minister of Public Works and Basic Infrastructure, Lakhdar Rakhrouch, has announced the launch of a national study to identify the sector's needs in terms of doubling the number of lanes nationwide. During a plenary session devoted to oral questions at the National People's Assembly, APN, the Minister specified that this study, based on precise technical criteria, will make it possible to draw up a list of projects for the doubling of carriageways on a national scale, classified in order of priority. This study, he added, will take into account the importance of splitting national roads in terms of socio-economics and road safety. In more Algerian economic news, the Minister of Hydraulics, Taha Derbel, has announced that his department intends to launch the final version of the water-saving charter shortly as part of its efforts to improve the management of water resources in various areas. During a plenary session at the National People's Assembly APN devoted to oral questions, Taha Derbel underlined that his sector was working to update the said text by involving all the players and services concerned, the aim being to achieve a final version for proposal and adoption and to make it a guideline document at all levels. The Minister of State, Minister of Energy, Mines and Renewable Energies, Mohamed Arkab, has held talks in Ravenna, Italy, with the Egyptian Minister of Oil and Mineral Resources, Karim Badawi, on the sidelines of the WTO Med Energy Conference, the ministry said in a press release. The meeting, which took place in the presence of the Algerian ambassador to Italy and the CEOs of Sonatrach and Sonelgaz, focused on ways of strengthening bilateral cooperation in the fields of energy, mining and renewable energies. Technology experts have said that Algeria has the mechanisms in place to achieve digital sovereignty in the context of accelerating global change and the challenges related to cyberspace.